What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Levi here. We've traded in Cram for the newer model. Uh, no, not actually. We're here to talk about a show that Joe and I went to the other night. We went and saw the Lemon Twigs. We don't do a lot of concert reviews because normally we don't go to shows together that often. So we went to the show, and Joe, before the show, put up on Instagram that we were going to be there, and a couple of viewers of the channel found us at the show. So one of those was Levi, and the other was a cool dude named Derek who was in the opening act called Boy Wonders. They're a local band. He played guitar and sang, and he said hello to us after the show as well. So it was cool. It was our first time being recognized in public, at least for Joe and I. I think Cram was recognized a year or so ago at a My Morning Jacket concert in Chicago. Yeah, we said we were going to review it on the channel, and we invited him since he was there and saw the same show we did. We figured he might as well hop on as well. So welcome, Levi.
Thank you. It's an honor.
This was your first time seeing the Lemon Twigs, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And so I see the Rush shirt and I see the Rush poster in the background. You're a big Rush fan, I take it. How did you get into the Lemon Twigs? Was it that seems like a disconnect?
Yeah, I've always loved bands that are connected to the classic rock era of, mid 60s through the 80s. And when I was in college, I used to go through the new music releases every Friday. And it was one Friday I saw a couple quirky guys on an album cover that was the new release, and it was the Lemon Twigs debut record. And I've always been into like Rush, Pink Floyd, the Beach Boys, that kind of space. Um, and the Lemon Twigs debut was like, oh my gosh, this is like they took all the classic rock groups that I loved growing up, like you throw in a little bit of Bowie, a little bit of AM soft, AM radio soft rock, mix it all together. And that's what the Lemon Twigs seemed like, but they didn't seem like they're not like Greta Van Fleet, where you're like, you can clearly tell this is copying specifically another band. Like I think their influences are mixed up enough that it doesn't seem like they're specifically ripping off like one artist or group.
Yeah, so for myself, this was my third time seeing them. So I was going in a bit of a veteran of their live shows, knew what to expect a bit. But I think even still, I was really blown away by the show Thursday. I thought it was fantastic. And I'm pretty sure Joe feels the same way from speaking to him after the show.
I bought the shirt, so I don't just do that for anybody. And, I liked Lemon Twigs. Songs for the General Public was in my top 5 in 2020, as was with Jason. But I just was not prepared for how good they were, how good they sounded, how well they played. And it's almost a double-edged sword because everything was so good live, and there's this energy and intangibility, from seeing like them doing 3-part harmonies while just like rocking these like ridiculous bass solos. And it's almost like the records now can't ever compare now, because I like the records, but compared to the live show, they're a little tame and sort of dialed back. Like them just going wild was just like mind-blowing experience. And I'm not like a live band first kind of guy. Like live albums, take them or leave them. But just everything they played, like the old stuff they played, the songs for the General Public sounded better. They played at least one from Do Hollywood that sounded just incredible live, and I went back and listened to it, and I was like, this is a good song, but I don't think I'm ever going to get that magic back, that whatever they pulled off on stage playing that song. So it was a great show. It was a phenomenal show, one of the best I've ever seen, and definitely the best like small show that I've ever seen.
Well, let's first talk a little bit about the venue, which is called the Thunderbird Cafe. It's in Lawrenceville in Pittsburgh, and it's a venue that I've played before. Back in the day, about a decade ago was probably when I played there, and my memory of it was just like a small stage in the back of a bar, which is what it used to be. And they, over the pandemic, I believe, totally renovated it. They excavated all this ground underneath. So now it's like you got these huge ceilings and balconies, and I was blown away by the remodel of the venue and how good it sounded in there. It was very loud, but not messy sounding. Like everything was super clear still, super defined. And I was really super impressed with the job they did there. So I thought the venue was fantastic. I got there pretty early. I saw both of the opening acts. I think both of you guys said you got there after the first act. So I was there for the local band Boy Wonders. Saw Derek and his band play. They were good. Little post-punky, so maybe not up Joe's alley, but also very Smithsy kind of too. Derek's guitar playing was very Johnny Marr inspired. He was playing a Rickenbacker, kind of jangly. Yeah, it was cool. They were good. And then Joe did arrive in time to see all of Slug Bug, which was one guy named Paul from Texas. He was playing synth, he was playing guitar, he had a tape machine behind him supplying backing tracks, and it was wild.
Like a breath of take a breath from you. Like a breath of take a breath from you. I'll be there, playing the tiniest trombone when your bus falls in the water. There, playing the tiniest trombone when your plane falls in the lake. There, tooting a tiny little view through an evil solitude when your yacht has insufficient lifeboats.
That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. That Slug Bug guy. I kept thinking, where's the drummer? Like he stepped away from the keyboard and there's no drummer. That's when I put together this reel-to-reel machine behind him was his backing track, and he was like sticking to a tape machine, which it's kind of confining for a live show, but it was so crazy what he did. It seemed like he was making it up as he went along. Like he'd have a spare like 10-15 second window for a solo, and he'd make a weird face and do something wild on keyboard. And for any Emerson, Lake and Palmer people out there, some of the weird sounds he was making on his Moog, some Keith Emerson type stuff, is great.
It was a really weird mix of like, it was like Devo influence, but like these really complex like keyboard lines. It was really weird. Like the lyrics and everything and the songs themselves were very like 80s angular post-punk, but with like a sort of parody twist to it. Like I couldn't tell if he was like deadly serious sometimes or just like completely just BS and making it up. But it was really impressively played, and it seems like everything was just like exactly how he wanted it. Like it seemed sort of like off the cuff, but also like really finely tuned. So I feel like he's got that like whole shtick down completely. And it was weird, like it kind of pushed my limits of like weirdness, but there's some of the keyboard riffs and solos and stuff that he was doing. It was really cool. And I didn't mind the sort of like angularness and weirdness of it, because it was just like really well done, even though it was just bizarre. And like I don't know how much more of it I could have taken, but the 30 minutes or so of it was pretty cool.
Yeah, as I was watching it, I was like, Joe has got to be hating this. This has got to be the worst thing Joe's ever seen. But then you said it was entertaining, so I was surprised that you didn't absolutely hate it. He was a weird guy. He was making all kinds of weird faces and weird voices, and it was all over the place. But yeah, there were parts where, what was the song he did about? He did the business trilogy, the 2-part business trilogy, which was pretty funny. About working his office job, which I thought was hilarious. So then it was time for the Lemon Twigs. They came out, the D'Addario brothers and company. Their old keyboard player's back in the band, playing bass now. I recognized him, and I think the drummer's been there for a minute. The last tour or two, I'm not sure exactly how long. They were all fantastic. They opened with The One from Songs from the General Public. Sounded great. Played a few tracks. They did a really cool Flaming Groovies cover in the middle of the set, and then they started switching instruments around. And when Michael went back to the drums, his drumming is just so fun to watch.
You thought so too. It seemed like he has like almost like a heavy style of drumming. Like he's not a light drummer. He really beats into those drums. I see what you mean, that he's an entertaining drummer.
He's kind of doing a Keith Moon shtick. The way he holds the sticks and the way he's kind of like tapping lightly on the cymbals and stuff. It's very I think he's basically just copying Keith Moon's whole thing, but it's awesome the way he does it.
What was the cover that they played during that show? Because he mentioned at one point this is a cover and it was really good, but I couldn't remember what it was.
They did Way Over My Head by the Flaming Groovies, which was probably one of, if not my favorite song of the night. I got a decent chunk of that song recorded, so I'll stick that in at the end of this video. You hang around to the end.
Yeah, cool cover. I was just blown away by, the versatility of everyone. Like Michael played guitar and then he went to drums and Brian started on the guitar. And then he was playing bass and he was playing it basically like a lead instrument, like doing all sorts of crazy runs. Then went over to, a guitar and like they were all soloing and like the drummer was doing some pretty cool guitar stuff. The bass player started on bass and they were all doing these great harmonies, and then he went on to synths and he was doing some cool, like it was just everybody was so talented and they really elevated, I think, like the arrangements of the songs. Like I liked everything they played better than what I heard on the record. So just the way that they were able to like play them close enough and like get the spirit of the song, but also like bust out some cool solos that weren't on record, and mess around with the songs without like being a jam band or anything, just like elevating them as they went along. And it just like they looked so talented doing it. Like it looked like there was just nothing for them, and it was just really impressive.
Yeah, Michael with throwing his leg over his head and like doing the splitting jump kicks and stuff. It just, he actually, the first time I saw them, he did that way more. Like you can already tell he's aging and out of that a little bit. He would do it maybe 10 times per song, when I think maybe he did it 5 times the whole show. But also the first time I ever saw them, they were the only 2 drummers, so they each played drums half of the show. So Brian, even though he didn't play drums the other night, he's almost equally as good of a drummer. He played half the show the first time I saw them. So there's really nothing they can't do. That's why they're Rado's kind of go-to guys. They're on the Wise Blood records and all that kind of stuff because they're so good.
It's sort of to echo what you guys said, like musical chairs. It felt like they were playing musical instruments, just swapping every couple songs. It was charming to see how like every one of them could play every instrument, and not just get by, but it seemed like the 3 guys that played lead, they each had a solo, and none of them were like weak solos. Like even the guy who spent most of the show on, I don't know if it was bass or drums, still pulled out a great solo. To Joe's point, Brian had, he switched to bass while singing at one point, and it was a really involved bass line he was playing while singing. It wasn't like, Gene Simmons, we got one note, we're going to keep repeating. It wasn't like a Michael Anthony kind of deal. He was like all over the fretboard while singing the verse. It's kind of crazy. Joe, you mentioned that the live sound was so good compared to their album sound. I agree with that. I have written down, please God, let these guys put out a live album.
Yeah, I love the records, and I think the production on the records is very cool. I think it's fitting to what they do, but there is way more power behind it live.
Yeah, I mean, I like their live albums. Totally don't use that against me, but just the power, like, I mean, his bass playing and singing was like Geddy Lee-esque levels of complexity, what he was, working with. And they're all doing harmonies and they're all just rocking out, fully. And it was all great. The new songs sounded really cool. Corner of My Eye, and Any Time of Day. Did they play that one? And then they played one at the end, which was just acoustic, and just Brian with like one harmony note from Michael in there. Abandoned a man like a dead man out of mind. No one trails the hearse. There's a voice divides the flame, sends it back from where it came to the cradle of its birth. Go back from where you came, or you're bound to wake up again. But the new album sounds very earnest and almost, they have sort of this humor in their music sometimes, like this playfulness, but from what I heard, I don't know, the new stuff seems very like we're really going to channel the late 1960s, and like in every aspect, not just the music but the lyrics and the way it's presented and everything. So very excited for the new album.
Yeah, I agree. And what an honor that we all got to hear those songs before they're on the album. I've never experienced that before.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new one a lot. It seems like they're doing away, well, maybe not permanently, but temporarily for this record, is kind of stashing some of the glammier aspects of their sound away in favor of the more, earnest kind of 60s singer-songwriter type of stuff. So should be interesting, should be cool. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
I just kept thinking this whole set sounds like if right now you turned on classic rock radio and listened to it for an hour or so, or if you were like in the year 1973 or 74 and you switched on like AM radio, those two singles that they have from the new album, Corner of My Eye and Any Time of Day, it's soft rock. I would almost say cheese, but I love it.
Yeah, I think it falls into like the AM gold stuff a little bit, but I mean, they can pull that off to the degree that it, you have to be like a certain level of musician and songwriter to pull that stuff off without making it, turn into Air Supply or something, lame like that. Like you got to be, Steely Dan level. And I don't know if they're Steely Dan level, but they have like ridiculous amounts of talent. And I think they can pull that sound off without becoming boring or sounding out of touch or anything like that.
All right, so there you go. That's our review of the show. I give it 5 stars. 5
stars here too. Songs for the general public. You will not regret buying this record, start to finish. There's no fat on it. It's great.
I agree. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and thanks to you. Thanks to Derek as well. Oh shoot, gotta snap with the band before the show. Very cool. All right. Thanks everyone. We'll see you in the next one.